Hi, I'm Skip Nipper, and welcome to Baselines. Jerry Bell grew up in the Old Hickory section of Davidson County and went to DuPont High School. He had a pretty nice minor league career and went on to play for the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, I had a chance to sit down with Jerry, and this is part one of an interview that I had with him, and he tells some great stories. And he's always smiling, even when he hears the phrase, "I've got some good news and I've got some bad news." So here's part one of my interview with Jerry Bell. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about yourself. I know you went to DuPont High School, but you didn't just start playing baseball when you went to DuPont.
My dad was the biggest influence. At that time, Skip, there wasn't a Little League franchise in Old Hickory, but there was a youth franchise called Knothole Baseball that you had to be 9 years old. There wasn't T-ball at 4 or 5 years old like there is now. But so I started playing organized baseball when I was 9 in the Knothole Baseball League, which my dad was coaching for a couple of years. He coached me or a team in that Knothole League until I was 11, I think. I think he coached for 3 years. But and then you went on after 12, you went into Senior Babe Ruth, which Madison, Tennessee had the Babe Ruth franchise locally there, closest to Old Hickory. It was in their district. So from 13 to 15, I played Senior Babe Ruth, and then my last 2 years of high school, actually my last year of high school, and then the summer after I graduated, I played American Legion baseball with Post 82 out of Nashville. But my father was the biggest influence. He's in the Old Timers Baseball Hall of Fame and was a good semi-pro pitcher, around here and in this area. And so he always had an influence on me from a pitching standpoint.
Yeah, now where was he from?
He was from Liberty, Tennessee, up close to Sparta area. And my mom was born in southern Kentucky. And she moved down here, I guess, when she was probably maybe 16, 17 years old. And my dad left Liberty and came to Old Hickory to work at DuPont plant. So that's how they met.
And then you have one brother, I know. How many sisters?
Got 3 sisters. Got 2 older sisters. I'm the middle of 5, and then I have a younger brother and younger sister.
And Daryl was your brother. He's a pretty good baseball player too.
Yes, he was a 3-sport athlete at DuPont. He played football, basketball, and baseball, and then played 2 years of baseball at Columbia State Junior College, and then went to work for the railroad for 20 some odd years. But very good athlete, and he was. I'm sure. I mean, I know that he was a better all around athlete than I was, but I just probably concentrated more on the baseball side of things.
And you were a pitcher. Did you play out in the field also?
I played shortstop and pitched until I was about 13 or 14. And then the hitting raised its ugly head, and my arm came along better than the hitting aspect of things. So probably at 15, I became pretty much a pitcher only. Yeah. And so I never played another position after 13, I think.
Now, what were your pitches? And I'm talking about 15 years old. Basically, beside a fastball.
Basically, fastball and curveball.
Yeah.
Didn't really develop a changeup at that age, and had not developed a slider. Didn't even know what a slider was. Yeah. Back in the day, it was the old drop ball, and the fastball type of thing. So that's the way I started, and I had what a lot of people call a drop ball. My curveball really sank down in the zone, and so I was successful with a curveball at an early age.
Yeah. Did you get drafted in high school?
Did not get drafted. I was scouted at Chet Montgomery and Bill Clark. Bill Clark was the scout who signed me, but both of them were with Cincinnati Reds. And every year they would do, for about probably 4 or 5 years in a row, from my 15-year age up until 19, they did a scouting camp at Springfield, Tennessee. And my dad took me up there a couple of years. I think I went 2 years in a row, 15 and 16. And at that time, they had a thing called follow card. So they would fill out a follow card with all your information, and then they would find out what your school schedule is and stuff like that. But Bill Clark was the guy who ended up, putting me in the draft in '69, and he had gone over to the Seattle Pilots at that point.
Which was a new franchise. It was an expansion franchise.
Expansion franchise. They only lasted a couple of years in Seattle, went bankrupt, and Milwaukee, the Braves had moved out of Milwaukee into Atlanta. So Milwaukee was wanting another franchise, and so they picked up the Seattle Pilots franchise and moved them to Milwaukee.
Seattle was there 1 year. They had these funky caps that had you could have worn that funky cap and had all kinds of stuff on the front of it.
Yeah, the Admiral scrambled eggs, I think they call it, whatever that was.
Now, tell me about Bill Clark, though, because I think you have still have a special relationship with him.
Bill Clark has always written me a letter for, I'll say always, but probably the last 8 or 10 years. I've gotten a letter from him, and we've had a couple of phone calls. And about 3 years ago, I invited him to the Old Timers baseball banquet. And so he's, I think now he's 85 or 86, but at the time he was like 83 years old. He drove in 6 hours from Columbia, Missouri, and for the banquet. And then we had a big discussion after the banquet, some friends of mine, and we sat out in the lobby until about midnight. And so I started looking at my watch, and I said, "Well, Bill, you need to go up and get some rest, man. Go up to your room and everything, and I need to get home." And he said, "Well, I don't have a room here." He said, "I'm driving back." So the guy was 83 years old, and he got back in the car and drove 6 hours back to Columbia, Missouri, starting at about midnight. Yeah. But it turns out that, and I didn't know this at the time, but I'm the first player that made it to the major leagues that he had put in the draft. So that was kind of a unique thing. And he's friends also, a mutual friend is Dave Jarvis, head coach at Belmont. I think they had some connections back when Dave had just started coaching at another college before he came to Belmont. And so they've been friends for a long time. So we had our picture taken, the three of us together at that Old Timers baseball banquet, which I cherish. Yeah. Cherish that.
Sure you do. But he must have thought you were pretty special. But how did he find out about how you could throw? Tell that story. You told that to me once before. That's how I know.
It was the year before, the summer before I was drafted in February of '69, and of course I was home from school, and so he said, I need to come out and watch you throw one more time, and so there's a little park, metro park called Madison Park over across the bridge from Old Hickory, and so I got my high school catcher Jimmy Hogarth, to come and catch me that night. The sun was going down, and we couldn't turn the lights on the field and use the field mound. So we just got over on the side, kind of in a street corner there, under a street light, and I threw a few pitches. And Bill said, "Well," he said, "the lighting's not very good," but he said, "I think I've seen what I need to see." So, I was in good shape at that point and throwing the ball pretty hard. So, and Jimmy told me, he said after that, he said, "Yeah," he said, you were throwing at the top of your game, basically. So that next February, I went into the draft.
Yeah, but there's another draft story too. You got drafted into the military.
I did.
Correct?
I did. At the end of my third year of college at Southwestern in Memphis, I had my GPA had gone down, and I'd gotten into the 1A category in the draft. So I was drafted and went in to be processed at the Memphis processing center there. Had already said goodbye to my family, packed my bags because I knew I was gone. I was a 1A, and I was one of the first ones that they were going to take. But I'd had some back problems even in high school. And at that time, I've had 2 herniated discs in my lower back. But that was just before, I think a year and a half before The first one had herniated. But anyway, all the medical records showed that I had some back trouble starting, degenerative disc disease, which my dad had, kind of runs in our family a little bit. I don't know how hereditary it really is, but a couple of my sisters have had it as well. But so at the processing center, they were looking at my medical records, and they said, we can't take you. You got back problems, and so we're going to give you a medical deferment. So they sent me out of there, and I bolted out of there because I could not see myself laying in a rice paddy with a gun in my hand over in Vietnam. But anyway, I guess the Lord put you where you need to be, and so a few months later, I was drafted into pro baseball.
All right, but did you sign right away?
I signed right away. I was drafted February 1st in the second round of the winter free agent draft, and Bill had called me and to tell me that I had been drafted by the Seattle Pilots, and so he came into town, and so we went over the contract, and at that time there was not a lot of money involved as far as bonus money, but I had I signed for $15,000, but it was split up. In other words, they gave me $5,000 to sign, and I was to get $5,000 more dollars if I made it to AA, and then another $5,000 if I made it to AAA. And so over the course of the next 2 or 3 years, and I was fortunate that the Milwaukee franchise did not have a AA club at that time, so I skipped basically from Class A to AAA. So my next bonus was $10,000 because I had skipped that other section.
Pretty good money.
So
back in those days.
It was very good money. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, where were you playing? Where did you play minor league ball?
Well, I started out in my first year in short rookie season in '69 at Newark, New York, in the New York Penn League. Jamestown, Albany, Geneva, Oneonta, a lot of teams in western New York. There, it was a short rookie season. It only lasted, I think, from around the middle of June until the end of July. So it was a 6 or 7 week season. And then the next year, I went to full A at Clinton, Iowa, in the Midwest League. Quad Cities, Burlington, Appleton, Wisconsin, those type of teams. Then my third year, started out in Raleigh-Durham. I was optioned to, there was a club in Raleigh-Durham that was in the Carolina League, which was full Class A. And it was partly a franchise of Cincinnati Reds and partly Milwaukee Brewers. So it was a combination of the two organizations. And so I was only there like 7 or 8 weeks. I went 8-1, really had a great start there. And of course, as I said, Milwaukee didn't have a AA club, so they promoted me directly to Evansville, AAA in the American Association, and then went up to the big leagues at the end of '71. So '71 was a big year for me. And so I would say, and Evansville was a really nice little town. Yeah. I love that stadium. I was just there this past summer, actually. We were going to Milwaukee for a Alumni Day. And so we went through Evansville and stopped there and got out on the mound again. They were changing some of the sound system in the stadium there, but Bosse Field is a historic old stadium.
Sure, step back in time now.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. All right, now let's go to your Milwaukee Brewers career. Now, tell me.
Do we have to?
No, don't have to. But let's see. On September the 6th, which is just 4 days from now, 1971, that's what, 49 years ago, you made your debut.
Wow.
Debut. You faced the Kansas City Royals. You gave up 1 hit, walked 2, gave up an earned run in 1 1/3 inning. Do you remember that? Is that very vivid to you?
It is very vivid as far as being in the stadium and getting that call and warming up in the bullpen and everything. But once I don't have a lot of memories of actually being on the mound in the game. Yeah. And I know that's probably sounds weird to some people, but I'm not even positive who the first batter I faced was. I'm thinking it was Amos Otis or Cookie Rojas or something, but and you may have.
I don't think I have that. I can find that for you. I don't think I have that.
And probably the game summary on Retro Sheet.
Yeah.
I could go back and do some
It's
research
there.
on that.
It's
But
there.
I remember just being very excited about it, and I'm sure that I would have had a more vivid memory of actually in-game performance if it had been Fenway or Yankee Stadium or something like that. But Kansas City was a nice place to play. You know, they had the artificial surface and everything. So I was very excited about it.
Well, tell me too. Once before you told me about there was some kind of a transition from Evansville to Milwaukee that involved Dale Crandall.
Yes. They fired Dave Bristol. Milwaukee Brewers fired Dave Bristol at toward the end of that season. And so for the month of September, when they do all the call-ups, they can increase the roster to 40 from 25. We got a call after one of our Evansville games that night. Dale Crandall called myself and Darryl Porter into the office. And he said, well, I got some, bad news and good news. And he said, the bad news is we've got to pack up and move. And he said, the good news is, he said, they bought all our contracts. You two guys and myself.
That's great.
I'm going to be the manager, and you two guys are going to the big leagues.